Welcome back to the OPEX podcast where fitness is explained. I am your host, Robbie Burke, and I'm joined on today's show by OPEX's Sean McGovern. On this episode, we dive into Sean's background, how Sean got involved with OPEX, Sean's current role within OPEX. I asked Sean who have been his biggest influences. Sean discusses some of the biggest problems he sees coaches make when it comes to prescribing nourishment with their clients. Sean discusses basic lifestyle guidelines. I asked Sean to give us his current and top book recommendations. And finally, I asked Sean if he only had 1 year left to live, how would he spend that year? This was a great episode with Sean, guys. I know you're going to love it. Stay with us. Sean, we're rocking and we're rolling. It's an absolute pleasure to have you come on the OPEX podcast where fitness is explained, but nutrition as well, as we'll get into. And first off, for the viewers and for the listeners, it is this man's anniversary today with his wife. So he has come on and made time for us. So let's really appreciate Sean for doing that. So I really do appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a blessed 5 years. So she's still with me, so something's working out.
Oh man, if Sean's wife, if you're watching this, I'm sorry for your troubles. All right, so let's hop right into it. So give us the background. Who is Sean McGovern? How did he get involved at OPEX? What's his role at OPEX? Take it away, brother.
Yeah. So, what year is it? It's 18. So I'm looking at probably close to 25-year veteran of skateboarding. So my majority of my life at this point, over 2/3 of it or so, has been revolving around that, and that's kind of been a vehicle for me to navigate through things and kind of push me in different directions over time. So with that being said, it's definitely it is a sport to me, or a recreation or a lifestyle for some at some matter within there. But it also kind of put me into this environment early on of like group flow and wanting to be around people that highly pushed me in the direction of growth, right? So being able to get past just folks that you're doing similar work with and trying to be around people that are going to push you to be better. So I've seen that kind of be an ongoing theme within my life. And, growing up skateboarding, you always tried to get out with the older kids or the pros or the folks that were on flow and kind of, see what was possible based off of that. And I think my transition from, just being like a cheerleader or a floor coach, like almost over a decade ago when I first started off in the business of help leading group classes and things like that, being around and exposed to folks that were arguably better or just kind of pushing the envelope has been a huge component to my own personal growth within there. So within the community of fitness, I started off as an intern working at a CrossFit gym, and basically I think I spent about 6 months in that role or so. And kind of I had a full-time job. Like 12, 15 years ago, I was editing music videos and commercials. So I was taking time out to kind of explore that and see what interning in this field looked like. And then basically gave away a hot salary to make like next to nothing, but to be able to like show up to a gym and like work with people on, improving and, hoping that their lives are impacted at some level. Yeah. And probably about 3+ years after the internship and working semi full-time, right? So it was more like part-time and then trying to find money elsewhere. Bills magically got paid somehow. And at that point it was like, all right, well, if we want to do this right now and we want to do this as a profession, I'm going to have to open up a gym just so that I can be a coach, right? And that was probably the worst pretense to ever open up a business and put that kind of dedication and time into it. And plus not being a businessman in general, there's a bit of a learning curve and, doing a lot of things that you're arguably not good at, right? So we're 4 years in now, and then I ended up running the gym for about 4 years and decided that it was time to check out eventually. within the time period of probably 2011, I got deep into CCP through OPT back then, pre-OPEX, and had gotten a mentorship with James Fitzgerald, and just having regular conversations with this guy every month, a couple times a month, actually. It really kind of, it set some light bulbs off and showing me like what was more out there. So, possibilities, what people are willing to pay, what people are willing to do, and, come to a coach for, right? And I think that was a big important part, because for so long, it was just kind of like people just show up. Some people get better, some people don't. And that was a problem, like having any level of integrity, running a gym that had at, its high point, 275 people, and maybe only 20% of them were seeing legit results from that. Like, that's problematic, right? And you're trying to flush out all these ideas. There's the clear people of going out boozing all the time and things of that nature. But when you're just kind of sitting on the surface like that, and you're just going through the process and collecting auto pays every month, it's nice to have money, but at the same time, if you really truly want to see that impact with people, there's got to be something more to it. And having some influences like, Rob Wolf, per se. Like, I remember going to his first nutrition seminar back in I think it was 2010, or maybe even, heck, it might have been 2008 or 9. I don't even remember.
Don't
it was the first
eat gluten.
Yeah. It was totally it was so paleo, and hey, we're going to talk about the zone for a second, but this is what paleo is. Yeah. And this was a biochemist, right? This was a guy that was brilliant, and he needed that level to be able to talk about food. And that intrigued me for some reason. It's why is this guy that's so deep into biochem, talking about food? And it made me reverse my thoughts on it, where I was does food really matter? Or do you need to know how food actually affects the body for it to be a larger component, right? And my overview in general, if I had to look through everything in one specific lens without being dogmatic about it, is, organs are going to affect behaviors, and behaviors are going to affect organs, right? It's kind of like the traditional Chinese medicine or Greek medicine approach of looking at things. And I've never seen anything be more true to fitness in that way. So having a look at that, and then understanding how is food going to influence this? How is this going to influence that? Working and trying to grow as a coach over the time, reading every ebook that Dan John ever put out. And even then, within mixed modal and the world of CrossFit, Charlie Francis becomes a very interesting topic, because he was talking about, really stacking different energy systems on top of each other, and concurrent training that arguably, was, outside of track and field, probably wasn't being done all that much in reality, as far as fitness is concerned. So digging deep into his stuff, and I don't know if you've read his books, they're all basically blog posts, right? Just all thrown into a book. So just going through that stuff and seeing things, and one of the biggest pieces that really stood out to me within that was his concepts on restoration and emotional health and relationships, right? And when we think about what OPEX does and what our coaching staff with the remote clients here in the HQ does with people, it's about establishing relationships, helping folks see where they're actually sitting within emotional health, and then starting to tweak behaviors and all those types of things in that direction, right? So it's training, yeah, absolutely. That's why most folks come to us. But at the same time, there's a nutrition component, because that's going to feed into their mental capacity, their emotions, but it's also going to feed into their performance. But then we have performance working against all of that and creating negatives or stressors in the system. Then we have to realize we have to be able to recover all of that. We need to be able to gear folks into the direction of recovering not only their emotional life, but their stress and their physical life within there. So it ended up becoming so much more complex for me as I started digging through that. And it basically just allows you to work with folks at a level that you can start to eliminate variation, right? So I think back to when we had so many clients in my home gym back in Chicago, and now these answers are starting to come up. Why are these people not getting better? Why are these people constantly inflamed? Why is this person not losing weight, but this person is? I mean, there's a million reasons, but they start to really show up in here and be like, oh, there's more than just this training part. That's, that's nutrition, that's nourishment. Like, this is anything that truly builds up somebody or supports them. So it goes more than just food. Food's a component to that. But like most folks know, your stress levels and getting cortisol levels jacked up because of emotion, that changes physiology. And, you could be eating low glycemic index carbohydrates all day, trying to moderate blood sugar, but you start throwing all these other variables into the mix, and that doesn't matter as much. Yeah, it's helping, but it's still not fixing the problem because there's these other components within there. So, yeah. It gets a little deep, and long story short, which I already just babbled for 10 minutes.
Good.
Speaking with James, investigating, working with the cats here, and the staff here, that's just amazing, has continually pushed me to refine that. And upon selling my gym, just to go full circle on that, I was doing remote coaching for a time, and at some point, James and Mike Lee reached out to me to bring me on as part of the global team. So one of the first coaches that weren't at HQ. So had about a good year in that. And then basically it was just like, Chicago weathers, I'm over it. I want to get somewhere where I can bring higher level of fitness and health to my family, and have a little consistency in the weather as well, which never hurts, and just be around other folks, and collaborate with people that have the same mindset, like working with Michael Band day in and day out, like throwing ideas off of each other, and just, being able to truly try to continue to push the envelope here. And that's been huge for me. And that's kind of where we're at now. I am a CCP instructor for nourishment. So I do the online content for nourishment, as well as the live and immersion courses that we do. And also more recently have been on the education side for our own HQ staff, for our remote coaches, and being able to bring more content to them and continue the growing process within all things kind of like nourishment and nutrition based as well.
Great stuff. So obviously James has been a huge influence, and your colleagues who you work with, so you mentioned Mike Ban, who is an absolute legend. The guy who's got no TV in his house and says he reads 5 hours a day, which I do believe, because Ban is a psycho. In like a good type of psycho, just so the viewers and listeners know what I mean by that. But obviously then you've got Mike Lee, who's like the happiest dude ever, and just an unbelievable coach in terms of how he relates to his athletes and his programming abilities, and just obviously. So James and two Mikes are the guys I know best, in Jim and yourself. But outside of James, because we could talk about how he's a huge influence on all of us. I met the, I was in Arizona 3 months and got to meet up with the guy a handful of times, and now I'm hosting the OPEX podcast all the way from Dublin, Ireland. That just tells you how much of an influence he had in our interaction together. So. But outside of James, who else has been the biggest influences on you professionally and personally?
I'd say professionally, having an opportunity to talk to Dr. Dick Tom, who's he's a naturopathic doctor out here, and the guy's like kind of the grandfather of it. He goes back, and seeing like a level of vitalism and just an understanding of the human body and how so many things are connected, really, really kind of drove me in a direction to see what is possible. And it makes you look at all things nutrition and training as each different components of, really nourishing someone. So just moving and getting blood flow is nourishing for one person, but could be stressful for another, right? And I think that's one of the super important things to really think about as a coach, as you're working with people and in the trenches with that, is just thinking about the intent behind things. I had a real good discussion about this the other day, and I was trying to explain to a group of folks that, intent goes a long way, because even if you have someone assigned like 60 minutes of blood flow work, and you're like, you know what, Johnny, you just have to go for a walk for 60 minutes on Sunday. Now, if Johnny's super high anxiety, just telling him to go for a walk may give him 60 minutes to let his mind just go wild, right? And actually rethink things, cause even more stress, and just go down that rabbit hole. But if it's like, hey, Johnny, go for a walk for 60 minutes, but turn your headphones on and listen to this, or play music, or whatever the case may be, now that may have just become a better prescription within there, right? The RX just got upgraded and the intent was dialed in, so you could actually nudge that person into the direction of more progress within there. Mm-hmm. So kind of looking at things along those lines and rethinking, perceptions and intents around that stuff within all domains of, what's relaxing for a person versus what's actually stressful and what's also perceived stress. And how does nutrition have the same thing, right? Arguably, we could say broccoli is healthy for everybody. If you have someone that has a lousy gut trying to digest, barely cooked broccoli, we all know that's going to hurt, right? And that's not going to be beneficial. It's actually going to add digestive stress to the body, right? So broccoli wasn't good for that person, but globally, it's a beautiful thing that is good for folks, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of those kind of things kind of stem from his what I've gotten and kind of seen through between the lines of listening to him talk and also reading some of his stuff. So
sweet.
Definitely.
And Dr. Tom is one of our leads on level 2, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at least 2 courses, 3 to 4 days taught by him. So just having an opportunity to hear that guy talk is fantastic.
What would you say are the biggest mistakes you see or you hear about with regards to coaches and their delivery of nourishment to their clients? And with that, then, what are some of the biggest sort of limiting factors you see when it comes to clients trying to integrate any sort of recommendations made to their nourishment lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one, right? Because everyone is going to be an N=1 experience, right? Mm-hmm. Every client's going to be a little bit different. They all came up a different way. They have their own biases, their own, preconceived thoughts about what nutrition looks like and how it should be. And just also, they've been through a lot of learned experiences that have created behaviors.
Yeah.
I mean, you get someone that's 50 years old in your doors, you have arguably 35 to 40 years of patterns to work against, good or bad. There could be some good things reinforcing there, but if you have someone that's never eaten a meal that wasn't shoveled into their mouth, like that's a hard pattern to break. And they've probably set up their lifestyle around that to coincide with it. They have things, wall to wall throughout their day to ensure that, that kind of is maintained throughout there, because they don't know any other route on that, where they haven't heard anything else. So, implementing nourishment's super tricky, but I'd say the biggest mistake that I see is just jumping the gun and going too fast, too far. It's sometimes so simple. People want to jump into, you could kick this dead horse all day of like getting into macros and calories and like all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it's just as simple as, we're going to start working with water right now. Like, we're gonna get you drinking enough water to begin with, right? And then maybe we'll start to increase the quality of that, and we'll throw some trace minerals in there, and we'll just slow step that. But you can't expect someone to go from drinking, 40 ounces of water on a good day to jumping to 60% of their body and 60% of their body weight in ounces, which could be 100 ounces overnight. So, on a cellular level and, the way the body communicates with itself, it's all about the environment of the cell, and you need consistency first. Mm-hmm. So I'd much rather someone drink 50 ounces every day and have one day of 20 ounces and another day of 80 ounces and just be kind of all over the place and starting to send the body mixed signals for that matter, like on such a low level. So simplicity is where it starts. What I like to tell my folks is we're going to start with just increasing frequency. And then we're going to take frequency and we're going to try to make that more consistent, and take frequency and turn it into consistency. And once you have consistency, you can build on that, because the patterns and the base work for that's been set. And that could be as simple as eating 3 meals a day. Or maybe for that person, it needs to be 2 meals, right? Like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. All of it needs to be geared towards where the client is actually sitting. And, as far as faults along those same, lines, like, people are, especially in the performance world, and I'm talking like that transition from beginner to intermediate, right? That's a fragile time because the adaptation curve is just starting to switch a little bit, and like people are geeked up because we're still seeing fast progress and people are hungry for more work often. Like, all right, let's up this individual's calories. It's like, yeah, that could be beneficial, but if they're still only pooping once a day, do we really want to increase their caloric intake by 50%, right? Going from 2,000 calories to 3,000 calories is a big increase. And if those are still relatively whole foods and we're not moving and we're not eliminating a lot of that, is it smart to bring in more if we can't even get rid of what's already there at a normal basis, right? So it's looking at a lot of those normal things, and arguably digestion isn't within the realm of the coach, right? It's not in our lane, but we can look at it in the sense of this isn't happening. So a better nourishment program so that you can recover from the stress of that day, that workout, whatever the case may be. Because remember, it's everything, right? It's not just, can we recover them from that workout? It's like, can we recover them from that entire day?
Yeah.
And does it have to happen overnight, or is it a 2-day period before we get back into that same hit on the CP system or the aerobic system or whatever the case may be, right? But we're looking at that, and then the better nourishment program then becomes less calories perhaps, or foods that are easier to digest, or I don't know, having an ego check and actually referring somebody out to someone that can help them with their digestion, right? I mean, how better can you help secure a client's success than actually show them that what they think is normal is just common, right? I've had so many women clients, oddly enough, that are like, yeah, I've had IBS for like 5 years. It's totally normal. A lot of the women in my family have it. It's like, yeah, that's not normal. That might be common in your environment, but that's not a normal thing, right? And if your doctor's still just telling you to eat like more yogurt every day to solve that problem, then maybe you need to see a different doc. Like, maybe you should see a specialist or work with a functional med doc that can actually, talk you through what's going on in there. We're going to continue to work on lifestyle to support healthy digestion. And I'm going to give you food recommendations that don't clog you up even more. But in the meantime, like, there's some responsibility. If you're serious about making progress, then this might be the direction that you have to go.
And Sean, how would you go about communicating that? Because just going through consultation in CCP, Sharon always, well, I shouldn't say always, but Sharon on consultation CCP mentions, like, to really be effective with communicating, you don't really want to use words like you should do this, like you should go to this doctor because that isn't normal. This is the way you should eat this. Obviously we're trying to use NAPA and we're trying to like notice things and then, explain, prescribe them, and obviously attend to the whole process then. So how would you go around communicating that to the client in a way that wouldn't make them defensive?
Yeah. Well, I feel like my communication style in general, which I try to lean towards just to make myself a better coach as well, is to be educationally based, right? So to be able to teach my clients so that there is no codependence in that relationship. So I'm like, let me gear you up with what you need to be successful. So in scenarios like that, if I can drop some biology on them and be like, hey, this is what happens during elimination. It's important to be able to move through. We have fat-soluble toxins that's going to be coming out of the bowels and yada, yada, yada. And you can make some of those connections. Those light bulbs start to go off and they're like, hey, so do you think I should talk to someone about this? Right? Like, it's making them aware of it so that they're asking better questions at the end of the day. And then you can just supply them with resources based off of that. You don't have to tell anybody anything and like demand that they go in that, but constantly working on the trust triangle and increasing your own competency, showing your clients that you do care and having consistency within that relationship, they're going to know that the information that you're providing them is for their best benefit. And when they start asking questions and they're like, all right, well, how can I fix this? Okay, well, there's a couple different pieces in here. You could see a specialist that, like whatever, it could go in multiple directions based off of that. But
so just even off that, because again, we I mean, we could go on here for an hour. We'll try and keep this, we'll wrap up in a few minutes. I say that now and it'd be like 4 hours later. But, like, I suppose one thing of that is, and again, this comes from consultation on CCP, is that trying to make it relatable to the client. So for instance, saying like IBS or digestion, you should try and link that to their priority. Well, if if we, they might be, well, like, it doesn't bother me that much, I can just take tablets. Like, yeah, but better digestion can be better energy, which means more energy to play with your kids, and your kids are your top priority. So that's a really good way of going about it too. But one thing I will say, this is just from my own experience, is that, like, I kind of went through that journey too, in that I got real heavy into the functional medicine and, real into like the food quality. Don't get me wrong, food quality is important and all. But what I started to realize was that I kind of started implementing more of Occam's razor, as in, like, if there's, which is basically, if there's two answers, usually the easiest or the most simplest one is the correct one. So for instance, I had a personal one myself where I was constantly getting just this bloat in my stomach. And like, I was like, oh, is it enzymes? Is it H. pylori? Is it a fungal infection? Or sorry, is it a bacterial infection? So like H. pylori. Like, what's going on? Like, I was thinking all these things. And Sean, it was just, I was eating too much. Do you know what I mean? It was just portion control. That was it. It was such a simple... but I'm not messing. It drastically changed my health in terms of my mood and everything. Because I was just going around... Because, Sean, like, I was eating, like... I don't know what it is in pounds. But, like, it just got to... Again, it was just habit and what I perceived to be normal. Like, at that time, just my meals just got huge. Because, like, right now, I'm about 78 kilo now. But, like, I was 94 kilograms at my heavy, so over 200 pounds. And, like, my meals consist of, like... I was eating almost like 500 grams of meat at a meal, like, and just like massive sweet potato. And this is the thing, like, so if you were thinking food quality, I was eating brilliant food. So this annoys me when people say calories don't matter. It's like, yes, they do, because like I ate like tons of like quality meat and tons of sweet potato, and I was fat and I was bloated. I was bloated all the time because I was thinking I had to do it to keep this weight on. But I was going around just constantly like, oh, and then there's me thinking, oh, I'm not producing enough acid in my stomach. Like, should I get the acid tested again? Is it digestive enzymes? Is it H. pylori? All these things. It's just like, nope, you're eating like 3 meals in one. If you just took that one huge meal and divided it into 3 meals and chewed your food and took your time. And like, I'm honest, when I done that, it changed my life drastically in terms of just like energy and mood and everything. So that's just, and then the other thing with the functional medicine is that, like, a lot of it just kind of confirms what's usually wrong with someone. So like, you run an adrenal stress index. It's like, yeah, we knew your circadian rhythm was screwed up. We knew like your cortisol was probably going to be high at night and the melatonin was going to be lower. It's just like, we just spent like thousands of dollars kind of knowing stuff, we already need to know, which is going to filter into the next thing, which is our basic lifestyle guidelines, or BLGs, and just touch on what is covered in the nutrition module of CCP, and then we'll wrap up. But what's your thoughts then on that, like, kind of going back maybe to like an Occam razors? Sometimes I think we get too fancy, like, oh, we should run all these tests, and is it your microbiome? Don't get me wrong, now, microbiome really important. I'm not saying it isn't, but sometimes it's just like, maybe you're just like eating too much food.
Dude, it's legit. That's what's up, man. Like, it's usually now, it's a tough word to use, but a lot of the time you'll see things as simple as that.
There's
right?
There's too many U's in that bleeding word. U-S-U-A. Is another unit L?
It's auto type, bro. I have no idea.
yeah, exactly.
It'll fix it for me.
We're so lazy.
As long as it looks like it, right?
Yeah.
But and that's why starting simple is so important, right? Like, we're emotional beings, and for some reason we gravitate towards complexity because we think we're too good for the simple solution. I don't know what it is, but it's like inherent in our DNA, So it's like, well, I haven't pooped in 3 days. I don't know. maybe it's water, maybe I need this, maybe it's that, maybe it's I don't sleep, maybe it's the stress of my job. Maybe I eat one meal a day, so I actually don't have to poop that many times. Like,
Yeah.
just thinking about total mass traveling through the system, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's sometimes just any one of those. Maybe you're eating in a stressful environment. So go outside, given your location, like relax a little bit, breathe, chew your food. Cool. Now you have no problems with digestion, right? It could be something so simple like that, but we want to go in the direction of just complicating things because, it can't be that easy. It can't be as easy as just getting 8 hours of sleep every night, drinking enough water, and being mildly consistent with our nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, BLGs, in the older versions of CCP, that was kind of foundational. Like, you really didn't do much with folks until those were hammered, or at least constantly making progress with. But we see it now more in the sense of this is the foundation. If you wanted to be able to build a structure on top of that, and the example I usually give is, if you're going to build a strength and conditioning pyramid on top of that, right? And you could name each layer whatever you want, whatever your bias is, but let's just say like strength, power, and then skill, right? Just pretty old school principle, but it's thinking about what that's all being built on. What does that floor look like? What's the tightness and the toughness of that foundation so that you can actually build something strong on top of that. And the BLG is like, looking at balance, energy, rhythm, and purpose. Purpose is a tough one in general because, we're not in the mental health, arena, and 90% of us, if not more, aren't even, licensed to be doing that kind of work or whatever the case may be. But it's also being a respectful and a non-judgmental mirror to our clients, and telling them back the things that they're saying so that they can kind of see more of the big picture of what they need to do to be more fulfilled. Because most coaches can tell you, if you have a client that is just miserable, they're not going to see progress. There's so many psychosomatic components to that where their own emotional life is going to be preventative of them, even making the changes that's required or should be adhering to the hard work that they're putting in, right? That it's not physiologically possible at that point. And if it is, it's like super small progressions that just, make it harder and harder for them to be successful and get that reward from all the work that they're doing. Rhythm's a huge one in general. This is, our day, what patterns are coming within here as far as, how is blood flow? How is oxygen flow? Are we breathing? Are we moving? Getting lymphatic drainage on a normal basis, eliminating, right? Going back to digestion and things like that. Everything in the body essentially is on a clock, like all the way down to the cell cycle for like mitosis and things and cell replication. Like that cell has a work day, and if it's injured after that work day, it's going to go back into the cell cycle and pop back through there. Like everything has this like clock mechanism to it. So being able to keep the body attuned to that, and we gotta say it, because since we talk about rhythm and eliminating variation as being an important thing, we have to touch on the fact that, maybe 6,000 years ago, people were more intermittent with feeding. Calories and macros looked a little bit different from day to day, as did total energy expenditure and so on and so forth. But that's absolutely true. But the amount of stressors around those individuals were probably a lot more limited compared to what they are now, right? Being emotional and going back to that, we've taken things as simple as, threat, extreme temperatures, and famine, and we've just like completely lost the ability to discern between that and an emotional argument, or getting cut off, or getting an email, right? Like now all those things kind of represent the same. So that's a lot of different kinds of stress based off of 8,000 years ago. So with more chaos requires more control and elimination of variables in other areas. And you can pick and choose which ones that you want to control, but being able to lock someone down, or at least work them in the direction of everyday feeling as far as like their clock is concerned, relatively the same, is only going to help get them closer to a baseline if they're subpar right now, right? So their body knowing that at 11 a.m. we should be relaxed, right? Parasympathetic goes buck wild. The ability to digest food goes up, assimilate food goes up, win-win, right? But if you're training at 11 o'clock one day and you're eating at 11 o'clock on another day, maybe the body is going to start splitting the difference on there, right? Maybe you're breaking rhythm and you're creating more chaos in that system, which is then going to give you less of an ability to be in the right state, especially if you're subpar, right? And there's going to be outliers in there, absolutely, but they probably have a little bit more control in other areas in their life, right? So kind of it all evens out on that.
Well, just one thing on that though, like it's a topic that me and you will probably discuss later stage. Like we know too that too much stability in an organism isn't good for its robustness. So I mean, there is going to be it's a spectrum, really, isn't it? Like there does need to be some variability in the system. Now, maybe not to the extent that you're training that is at completely different times every day, and your feeding is. But let's say with your food, there's variety in the food you're eating, but it's like a controlled chaos. Like the meals are at the same time, but there's variety within the meals. The training could be the same time, but there's variety in the training in terms of intensities and volumes, frequencies, intensities, exercise selections. So there's that way you're getting variation in, but there's still a stability component to it, in that the rhythm of it is still congruent with the system.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. We need stress, right, to be able to move forward. But at the same time, my bias in all of this is if you can't recover someone, you have no business stressing them. Yeah. Right? Because then you're just digging someone deeper and deeper into a hole, and they're not really they're just going to be deep in a hole at that point. And it's like, well, we did some fun training while you lasted, and now you got nothing left. So good luck getting out of that hole on your own. See you later.
That's I'm just going to say to you, for me personally, that's the gold in our conversation just now. Because most people will look at the training and stress first, recovery second, where you really should be reverse engineering that and saying, okay, what's our recovery strategies in place first? Now we're going to go into the stressors. So I definitely think that's far superior way of looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's been my approach for some time now, and that's why having communication with clients and having a capacity for consultation really matters, because I know if my client's going to have a crazy sales season at the end of the quarter, I'm going to change training. Absolutely. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm actually giving them more being more of an ability to actually be successful. Adapt. Right? It's not about overloading. It's like, well, we had a tentative testing cycle coming in and your work got in the way, so we're just going to do it anyways. It's like, I don't need the social media posts on how you PR'd 5 pounds, but then you fell apart the rest of the week. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it all comes down to balancing and knowing all those other pieces. Because again, it's not just training is maybe for the average person 60, 75, maybe 90 minutes a day. Maybe 4 or 5 days, right? That's not even significant, right? The last math I did as an example was 60 minutes, 5 days a week. And it came out to a third of the amount of time, hours in a week. That's nothing. Yeah. You will get more benefit sleeping. If you're sleeping 8 hours, that's 30% of your time right there.
That's one thing I love with Dr. Kerr Parsley. So you know Kerr Parsley. So one of the sleep experts, and he's worked with the military guys. And I love Jocko Willink, love him. The book's great. Discipline Equals Freedom, and then obviously Extreme Ownership. But you see Jocko, I'm up at 4:30 a.m. and I'm deadlifting, and then Kerr Parsley's kind of yeah, if someone's telling me they're doing that, I'm going to say stay in bed. He's and the guy who's interviewing was so would you say stay in bed than exercise in terms of health? And he's yes. He's you are not designed to be deadlifting at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And Kurt Brassey's obviously worked with he's military. He's worked with the military. His whole story was that guys coming in, and they're these guys are absolute weapons. Obviously the SEALs, and they look like they're the shit, and he's they're in ribbons, and at first they're all yeah, everything's great, and it's is it? Are you sure everything's great? Your blood work kind of looks off. Well, a little bit tired, but I'm good. It's yeah, a little bit tired. Yeah, I'm pretty wrecked. And he's what's your sex drive like? Oh, good, yeah, I haven't had sex names. So it's just like he really got, but I love the way like he was like that Kurt Parsley's like, I can't really think of a word to say on it, but he's brave enough to be like, no, like as much as we, like that rah, get up at 4:30, my enemy's up, I get up and I'm going to deadlift at 4:30 and it's going to make me better. It's like, yeah, that shit won't last long. Like, so, so you that's what I mean. You're better off. Like, it's just it's a cultural thing where like, we think that rest is laziness and that, that work gives us more self-worth. It's what I've been talking about a lot with people in terms of like strength and conditioning coaches in the field. Like in strength and conditioning, there's this game. It's called the game of one-upsmanship. It's like, well, I was at the facility at 5 a.m. and I didn't leave till 8 p.m. You were here at 6 a.m. and left at 6. Therefore, I'm better than you because I'm been here longer. It's like, yeah, but you don't go home because you avoid your wife because she gives out that you're not home enough. You haven't seen your kids in weeks. Your life outside of here is a disaster. You're in the building just to stay in it, to say you're staying in it. And also it's an avoidance behavior to not have to go home and deal with what's a major issue. So like, that's not healthy. That's not success. And don't throw your suffering in my face kind of thing, But anyway, listen, back to the BLGs. Oh, I can go on. back to the BLGs. So we did purpose, we did rhythm. So just finish it out there first.
Energy. And we've kind of chatted on this already, just thinking about, blue lights, diurnal rhythm, how food is impacting energy throughout the day. You could just layer and layer and layer things on top of each other with like, show me your energy patterns throughout the day, right? Like, what does that flow kind of look like? Now, where are you eating within there? How do you feel after those meals? Like all types of things. Where's exercise in there? And like one of my new things that I'm really trying to nip in the bud now is like exposing the fact that folks are using hard training or intense training as a stimulus in the morning. Like the fitness industry for years, like since I could remember, is like exercise gives you energy, and it's like last time I checked, exercise costed energy. Like, yeah, you're gonna get like this cortisol bump for sure, but I'm pretty sure my math is right when I say that like X minus Y equals less than X. Like
hence the term work out.
You ain't working in. That's for damn sure.
You're not working in, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, unless you're just like building an ego, and then you are technically working in, but that's a completely different topic, right? So, I mean, that has intricate indications all over that when you're looking at someone's energy flows throughout the day and lack of, and it's a big question I ask. I'm like, how do you feel on days that you don't work out? I'm like, I feel like crap. I'm like, we have a lot to do then, because that's not okay, and is it a better vice than, beta alanine every morning or whatever the case may be? Probably, but it's progression, right? And think about it. We talked about implementation before, and shortcomings of coaches that haven't experienced that and kind of flossed that out yet. Taking someone from, let's say let's just go industry on this. They're doing HIIT training in the morning, right? And then on the day that they didn't, they felt like crap. Okay. Do you go from HIIT training to nothing, to barely anything, to kind of something?
Yeah.
No, like they're going to feel like crap, and then you're going to have less compliance, and you're going to have less of a want for them to listen to you. So it has to be linear in that sense. So they may not even feel the subtle changes over time, but you're smart enough as a coach to be able to program things that either bottleneck them or allow within intent within the prescription, or however you program it out, you allow them to actually be able to make that change. And that's nourishment too. Like it's everything. Guess what, right? Like that's being smart in your program design to ensure that they can recover, so that you could say, let's just pretend 1 equals 1 in this, that high stress equals poor assimilation, right? So if we can just assume that those two are synonymous with each other, then we can say, all right, well, if we can reduce stress over time, your ability to actually increase assimilation of nutrition is going to go up. Like just to, call it even, right? So that's all part of the same game. So the reduction in intense training has now improved gut health.
Yeah.
And we know that highly or hypersympathetic people are deviating more blood flow away from the visceral organs and to the arms and the legs. so that they can address a threat. So if we can promote more blood flow to the gut, oh, what do you know? Now the gut's getting a little bit better. Now energy levels can be a little bit better. Now maybe you don't need that HIIT training in the morning just to feel a little bit better, because now you're going to actually digest, I don't know, breakfast.
But Sean, like talking with the likes of Pat Davidson lately and looking into things like neurotransmitters and like addiction and addictive behaviors, like, and again, listen, there's no like black and white. This is definitely everything, and everything is, it depends. It's on a spectrum. But I'd say like a lot of those behaviors are just, it's the reward system in the brain people get. It's an addiction, you know. And then if they don't have it, it's like, that's why you get a lot of people that they don't train. Like it's like they basically missed their crack cocaine for the day, which then kind of like goes back to your thing of like, sometimes you do need to just go cold turkey at some addictions, but obviously if we think more like maybe medical medications, you obviously wouldn't go boom, get off your medication. You try and like reduce it slowly. So that's one way, or that's one thing I just want to say, and one sort of way of looking at it. Is that, again, I think a lot of it is, and this is a question I've been trying to ask James, and not just James, but a lot of people, is like, where is that line between like something being beneficial and then something being detrimental to your health? So obviously like exercise, to like, again, we're on a spectrum, is unbelievably beneficial, but then there's a line where it can start to be detrimental. And I don't even mean detrimental in that like you start to overtrain. I mean like with relationships and socializing with friends. Well, I can't because I got to do this. And then you start like just having like really weird addictive habits and behaviors. And it's like, is this thing that was initially beneficial in your life, is it actually starting to like, you know, be a detriment? And then
dude, that's purpose though, right? Like when you can get someone, for some person that is, you know, chasing performance on that level, that's what needs to happen maybe, right? For their capacity on how much they can take on, maybe they can't take on relationships anymore, and that's fine, right? And that means all other bridges are burned that don't keep nudging you in that direction. But for gen pop and recreational folks within fitness and sport and things like that, you know, helping them flush out what their real goal is and ensuring that they're not chasing someone else's goal or a fad or what they think they should be doing, that changes everything, because those mechanics can all look different after that. And you want to think like human behaviors, you know, neurobiology, biochem, like Sapolsky, his newer book, Behave, touches on that. Yeah. It's so gnarly. Like everything has, you know, like he's really going down to a level that it gives you explanation down to almost wanting to make excuses for people based off of their chemistry and where they've pushed it, right? But you can't, right? It's all earned at that point, good or bad. So, you know, to kind of touch on your question of like, when is it deleterious? It comes down to what's the goal. If their goal is to be mediocre, but the most amazing mediocre in their life as far as athletic performance, maybe they need to burn every single bridge in their life. Yeah. Do I think that that's healthy? Hell no. But that's my perspective, right? And I have a completely different outlook and lens on life than that. But in all reality, everything should come down to function and what the goal is. If they need to be in that area, then they need to be in that area. Other folks, you know, they may have had different, you know, variables in their life that have kind of put them in the direction of like, I don't need to kill everything around me just to be successful. Yeah, right? But it's going to be different.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie there. Light bulbs just start going off my head, because James actually did say that. He's like, he basically like, what's the goal? And then going back to Sharon in consultations, like, what's the priority? And then like once you're clear on what your goal is or what your priority is, then there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong. So because I've heard that too. So if you want to be world class, like a world class athlete in a particular sport, your health is going to suffer.
Oh yeah, and you can't care about that.
And you know, there is going to be a social aspect and relationship aspect that's also going to suffer. I mean, how many times have we heard about this world class? So I've heard like, you know, AJ Roberts lately in podcasts talk about like, you know, he didn't go to birthdays or parties because he had training at Westside the next day, and like just world class athletes. So it's like in Essentialism by Greg McKeown. he's like, there's trade-offs, and that actually is a trade-off. And some people will look at that because they don't have the same goal priority, and they make a judgment on that based off their perceptions of reality and their goals and priorities, and say, oh, that's terrible what they're doing. Look, they're they never have any fun. They don't go out and eat. They don't socialize. But that for that person to be world class, that's what they want to do. And then vice versa, the world class athlete could be like that person, like they only exercise 3 times a week, and it's like, it's just like, they're mediocre at, like, fitness, and it's like, yeah, but that's not their priority. Their priority is that they do exercise to make them healthier and more vital, so they can live longer and spend more time with their family or friends, because that's their goal, that's their priority. So what you said there kind of hit a light bulb. And my whole sort of light bulb moment to that is that there's no right or wrong there. Like there's no judgment on that, because once again, you're clear on the priority or goal. So CCP is light bulbs are going off for me. People, get on the program. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it comes down to the client, what they need and what they have to work with, right? Yeah. And it's a question of resources and being able to align them with what they need and not having any judgment, right? If someone comes to you and they say, Robbie, I just want huge biceps. Like, are you going to be like, what a jerk? Like, I'm not working with this guy. You're going to be like, cool, dude, let's crush biceps. Like,
absolutely.
Like, dude, just unreal, right? But that's what that person wants, man. And it's allowing them to get to where they want. And it's not our place to sit on that and say right or wrong or good or bad or anything.
Absolutely.
Like that.
It's so good you bring that up, because it goes back again to sharing and your own perceptions. Because I used to teach at a personal training college, and you can see the evolution that people go through that, like, you once went through. So, like, I don't know about you, but like, I was obviously, like, I came from like a real Mike Boyle MBSC sort of training program, which, by the way, is an unreal program for a particular population, which is, athletes. But like, I would train everyone with that lens on. So like, if someone came for like body composition or like body transformation, I was like using the system, and like, could it still work? Yeah, but was it the most optimal? No. So like, again, like, if you saw someone using machine or bicep curls, you were like scoffing at them, looking at them, what are they doing? It was just like, hold on. If their goal is to sculpt their body, like, so I always say to the students, are machines functional? And most of them say, no, they're not functional. I'm like, no, I'm a bodybuilder going to step on stage, and my sport is symmetry in my body, and machines could play a huge part in that. Is that functional? And then after a while I go, well, yes, it's unbelievably functional for me, for my priority as a bodybuilder. Yeah. And it's just like, I want my arms to grow. What am I going to? Because you always hear people say, you want to grow your arms, like squat heavy and deadlift heavy. It's just like, okay, I get what you're saying. If you squat and deadlift heavy, you're not going to be a small human being in most instances. You're going to have some muscle mass, obviously. But if I want my arms to grow, you can't violate the law of specificity, which is do something that make your, that are obviously going to work those muscles. And again, it just goes back to your filter and your lenses, and realizing again that there is no right or wrong once priorities and goals are clear. So, Sean, man, you connected some of that stuff I knew, but it's kind of more consolidated. This is what I love. This is my purpose in life. Conversing. I hope the viewers and the listeners are appreciating this. Listen, but we better wrap up, because this is going on an hour, and our OPEX episodes are meant to be like 30 minutes. But listen, it's all gold. So listen, got to wrap up. What are your current book recommendations and your top book recommendations? So basically, what are you currently reading? What's your top book recommendation?
Right now, literally, we'll go old book recommendations. Obviously, Behave by Sapolsky. He did Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers. Great book as well. Coping with Food Intolerances, Dr. Dick Tom.
Keep going.
Human Superorganism, great one. Just a little introduction into gut microbiome. And then one of my favorites, which is about 700 pages deep, is Healing with Whole Foods. I think that's Paul Pitchford.
Paul Pitchford,
all great books.
I was just grabbing Sapolsky's one.
Oh, yep. Great book, man. The first 2 chapters changed my life. Really did.
For me, it was the epigenetics one.
Nice.
I think now. Yeah. Keep talking there. I'll pick it up.
Books.
Chapter 6 in that. for me.
Nice. And it's funny you mentioned that because like new, I haven't been too deep into anything too new coming out outside of just random pieces of picking up. But I got a year left in a degree in genetics, cell and developmental biology. So lots of textbooks right now as far as genetics, epigenetics, and
Give me names. Give me names give me names. I love all that stuff.
So, I mean, at this
Well,
point,
you can give it to me. You can give it to me afterwards, offline. I love, man. I love. All I do is read textbooks. Just textbooks
nice.
around me.
Nice.
Have you read just on epigenetics? That one.
What's yes, yeah, that was a while ago. It's a female author, right?
Yeah.
What's her name?
Ben
Lynch has got some good work as
Nessa
well.
Carey.
Yes.
Nessa Carey on that one, and then there's this one.
Yep, I recognize that one. Yep.
Yeah, Ben Lynch has got some good stuff too. Yeah.
He's got some great courses in nutrigenomics as well. It's a little deep, so having a good background in some of the chem for that would definitely be helpful. But
sweet.
Yeah. So I'm kind of finishing up in that area over the next year.
No wonder Mike Ban loves you.
We share a lot of the same concentrations, and we just offer slightly different lenses, but it ends up being.
You can just see you and Mike at dinner, and then Mike's girlfriend and your wife, and just the two of you there, and then they're just sort of like this.
Yeah, it makes for an interesting dinner party. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely. Okay, listen. Last two questions.
Yes.
I really, just so I do say this, I really appreciate you coming online today. This has been just
absolutely.
But like I say this at the end of all these podcasts, I'd be buzzing after them. Like I just go for a walk and I'd be buzzing heads, all these great ideas. So just it's amazing. So Sean, for whatever reason, right, you have 1 year left to live. For whatever reason, what are you doing with that 1 year on the planet?
Dude, I'm a sucker for tradition and family. I'm spending every moment with my son and my wife. No doubt. Like they've been probably the biggest driving factors in my life, just short of Jesus Christ himself. So, dude, it's legit. Just it's family at that point, and it's doing enough of X, Y, or Z to sustain income and be able to take care of my family and be able to see them. That's all it comes down to. Does training have a role in that? Training's being able to, sustain that year. It's all, man. Nutrition, all that stuff is just like, let's get the highest quality of life for this last year. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm focusing on. Everything else.
What a boring answer. Yeah. I'm only joking. I love it. Absolutely love it. Listen, Sean, that was absolutely fantastic, man. And no doubt we'll have you on with lots more questions. I got lots of stuff I want to ask about calories, about macros, about microbiome, epigenetics, loads of stuff. And we're going to be getting obviously questions from guys within the membership site and the forum, so stuff like that. But listen, for everyone watching, I really appreciate you listening, downloading, subscribing to the YouTube channel, all that stuff. Helps us get the message out that OPEX are trying to get out there, which is to live a bigger life.
Better. Live a bigger life.
Yeah.
Connect with your people. All that good stuff.
And learn, teach, move, and create. So until next time, guys, thanks a million. You got Robbie here, and you got Sean. See you later.
Thanks, Robbie. Good being here, man.